Hello, and welcome to Erin's hobby finance class of sorts. Let's get into it. Okay, so I asked you guys if you would be interested in a video like this where I talk through my Kpop finance tracker and how, or really what, I track and why I track it. And everyone who did vote voted yes, so here I am. But before I get into it, I want to preface this video by saying that everyone's financial situation is different. I am fortunate enough that I have a well-paying job, and that affords me extra income that I am able to spend on my hobby. I've done some reading before on this topic because I was curious, and according to articles I've read, the average person spends about 5 to 10% of their salary on their hobby, and I fall into that statistic. My budget I've set for myself is about 5% of my salary. However, I am one person, and what I spend is not a reflection on you. I know money and finances can be a sensitive topic for people, especially with the economy we're currently in the United States, and I want to be courteous of that. The point of this video is not to brag, but just explain how I set up my documents to stay organized with my purchases so I stay within my budget. So it's purely informational. So with that disclaimer aside, let's get into it. So this is my main hub. This is the first year that I'm using Notion to track my Kpop purchases. I've been using Notion for a few years now for my group order master lists, but specifically for my personal finance tracking, I used to use Google Sheets, and I will say Google Sheets is a lot more straightforward. The one pro of Notion is that you can really customize the look of it, make it more aesthetically pleasing, and cater it to your own style. Google Sheets does not have all those capabilities, but linking the spreadsheets and creating formulas within Google Sheets is a lot simpler. So I will say that if you're looking for a more straightforward way to track your purchases, I would just recommend Google Sheets. So on my main hub, I have 6 buckets that you can see here. So Notion classifies these as databases. So these different tables that I have created in here, so I may refer to them as databases throughout the video. So once I started tracking my Kpop purchases, these are really the 6 main categories that stuck out to me. I didn't always track my purchases as thoroughly as I do now, and I ended up spending far too much, in my opinion. So that's really what prompted me to want to start my purchase tracking and really get a handle on the money that I spent on Kpop. And to be honest, once I became a group order manager, keeping these spreadsheets was vital for me to stay organized. It really came down to organization for me. That was the main catalyst for why I decided to start tracking everything. Also displayed on my main hub is my budget, which you can see here. So I've set a budget of $5,000 for myself for this year, and it's actually $1,000 less than last year. And pretty much since 2022, my overall yearly spend has been getting less and less, and I wanted to spend less on Kpop this year as well. So that's why I lowered my budget for this year compared to last year. And underneath here, you can see this is my main table, which displays the net yearly total I've spent. So this table takes in all of the data from my different databases you see over here, and it totals them all together, which you can see down here. So I can always take a quick look at this table and know if I'm staying on track. Right now, my yearly total is displayed as a negative amount because I've actually made money. I've sold more than I've spent. So it's displaying it as a minus, since the way that my formula is set up, it says total spent minus total gained. But obviously, as the year goes on, that will change. And right here where it says yearly total, this is just a link to the main yearly total table. What you see here is just a simplified table view. So it's really the same thing. And finally, I have my comebacks database. So this I keep separate from the main 6 buckets because I like to be able to track how much I spend on comebacks. So I not only keep track of my yearly spending, but also my spending per comeback. I don't have strict budgets per comeback, but there's always a price range I like to stay within, depending on a few factors, including if I try for a fan call during that comeback or not. Right now, this database says CB test because ATEEZ hasn't had a comeback yet this year, obviously. But when I first created this Notion, I wanted to get all of my databases and formulas and everything set up. So I just put in a filler for now, which I will eventually populate for ATEEZ's next comeback. And I'll just duplicate this database for each comeback they have. I'll get more into the details about what I track for comebacks later in the video. Let's start by going through the main buckets, and I'll show you the different information I keep track of. You'll see as I go through everything that the information I track is similar across the different categories with slight tweaks here and there, but there's consistent information across all categories that I note down to stay organized. So first up is albums and merch. So the columns I have listed here are the items, the group that the items are for, what the price of the item was, the shipping cost, what type of item it is, so is it album or merch. I check if it's been received, aka do I have it. I specify when I bought it, and then I specify any relevant notes. So here you can see that for the Wooyoung birthday merch, I specify that the item was bought in 2024, which is why the price is blank, but I shipped it this year, which is why that's filled out and why it's included in this year's tracker. Oftentimes items or comebacks may span across years, and I do everything by calendar year, so I still include certain items if they cross into the next year. And at the end of the table here are the things that I needed to be able to calculate my net yearly total. So these are just like the Notion elements I needed to connect all of my databases together. These are relations and roll-ups. It's a little convoluted and I'm not going to get into it, but if you know anything about Notion, that's how I connect all of my databases. It's through relations and roll-ups. And so across all of my databases, you'll see these columns at the end. So if I don't talk about it as I go through, that's why. So the next bucket is group orders. These are group orders I joined, not ones I hosted. And similar to albums and merch, I track the item I bought, I track who I bought it from, what group it's for. And so for this year, I'm only collecting ATEEZ and Purple Kiss, so those are the only options I put down. I track the member the item is for because most of the time, if I'm joining a group order, it's for specific member cards. And then I have the price, the EMS, and the DMS. So EMS, if you don't know, is international shipping cost, and DMS is domestic shipping cost. I mark if I've received it, when the item was bought, and then any relevant notes. So these 3 group orders I have in here now were items that I bought in 2024, but I have not received the item yet. And so the EMS and DMS will be paid in 2025, so that is why I've included it here. So next is Instagram purchases. Like previously shown, I keep track of the item I bought, who I bought it from, the price of the item, the shipping, if I received it, date bought, and when it was mailed, and also notes. I always include the notes. These should all start looking pretty familiar to you now. All right, moving on. After that, we have Bai and Nyokyo. So for those who don't know, Bai and Nyokyo are Japanese proxy sites. If I buy something off of Mercari Japan, it'll be through these proxy sites. And like in previous instances, I track the item I buy, the price, as well as the date I bought it, along with the quantity of the items, i.e. how many photo cards are in the order. But this table varies slightly in that I also monitor when the item arrives at the warehouse. Because items are only allowed to be housed at the proxy warehouse for a specific amount of time, this helps me keep track of items I may be waiting on to arrive at the warehouse, and it also helps me, indicate when I can start consolidating my orders. Okay, next we have sales. This should be self-explanatory at this point. I note down the username of the person who bought the item, what it is they bought, the price, which channel they bought it from. So I sell across Facebook, Discord, Mercari, and Instagram. So I will always specify that. I specify when it was bought and if it was paid for. I try to be as descriptive as possible when I'm writing down the items. You'll see here I have GH1 and GH2 written down, and that tells me that the item was from either Golden Hour Part 1 or 2. And then I list more descriptive words, if it was from a specific shop, or like album cards versus polka cards, etc. And this is so I just have a general sense of what the items were. So when I, go back in however many months, I can just quickly know what was sold. And finally, we have trades. This database obviously doesn't factor into my net yearly total because I'm not spending or receiving any money with these items, but I like to keep track of my trades so I know what to anticipate in the mail and so I don't forget if I've already traded for a card. I note the username of who I'm trading with, the channel, so it's just Discord or Instagram. I write the item I'm trading to receive. So this is not what I'm trading out, this is what I will be receiving in the mail. I also have a process, so when we're still in the process of like agreeing to the trade, I write that it has not, been completed yet. And then once we take those next steps, I specify, is the item packed? Has it been sent out? And if I've received the item. I also write down the location in which it's coming from because that also helps me keep tabs on my mail and when I can anticipate it arriving in my mail. And then I also write down when the item was actually mailed out as well. I don't think I could be a collector if I didn't track my trades. This is honestly so incredibly helpful to me, and I definitely recommend everyone track the trades. Alrighty, so next I'm going to be going through my comebacks database, but before I do that, I want to briefly show you my Google spreadsheet from 2024. I'm going to walk through what I tracked for Golden Hour Part 2, and that should give you a better understanding of how I set up my database in Notion. So you can see here in my Google Sheets that all the sheets I have laid out here at the bottom are exactly the same as what's in my Notion. I have my Instagram purchases, my Buy/Nokio. Here, I'll go through them. My Buy/Nokio, albums and merch, any group orders I joined, any sales I made, my total for the year, my trades, and then here is my Golden Hour Part 2. And you can see at the bottom that all of my comebacks are separated. So when I used Google Sheets, I broke out my comeback items into 3 categories. The items I bought, so this is every single order I placed for that given comeback, and it also includes shipping costs for my Kate Eddie items. So this is just basically everything I spent money on. It goes in this section. And then my next section is my group order / proxy joiner payments. So I do proxy for some people that live outside of the United States, and I also host my own group orders as well. And so that is where this section is where that information goes. And I also want to specify that in this section, I don't list individual line items for all of my joiners. I will just write the sum of that group order. So you can see here with the Makes Our Winter Go. I already have master lists in my Notion for all of my group orders, and so I don't need to duplicate all that information in here. And so to keep my spreadsheets tidy and easier to read, I will just list the total sum of money I received from my joiners in my spreadsheets. And then the final section is items sold. So these are any items I sold that were not part of the Go or any proxy payments, i.e. any photo cards I may list for sale on my Instagram that people buy. And so I tally that all together, which you can see down here. And you'll see here that this was the total at the end of 2024. However, listed just underneath this is a new net total. So like I was saying earlier, I like to keep track of how much I spend for my comebacks, but I also separate everything by calendar year. So that is why I have separated what was bought and sold in 2024. And then down here is everything that was sold in 2025. If I made any purchases in 2025, I would also list that here, but I haven't. But I like to separate the 2 years, but then I still bring all of that information together to get a final total for the net amount of money I've spent on the given comeback. Now, if we go back to my Notion, I have simplified my table a bit compared to how I laid it out in the Google spreadsheet. I have 2 tables that funnel into the net total table for the comeback. So you'll see that here that I have an items bought table, a money received table, and then a CB net total, CB meaning comeback. The first table here is my items bought. So like I explained before, I'll populate this with any comeback related items I buy. I note down the items, the shop they're from, the quantity, the price, and date bought. So it's all of that information. And I have written in options here for stores that I often buy from, and obviously I can add to that if need be. Underneath that is money received. So this is not just for any group order joiners or proxy items, it's also for sales items. So I decided to distinguish between the different payment types by having a column here. So I can select the different options for, whichever payment type it is. So in my Google sheet, I had separated out sales items from Go/proxy payments, but to simplify things, I put them all together and we'll just use this column to help distinguish what the payment type is. And similar to the Google spreadsheet, since I keep separate master lists for all of the Goes I run, I won't be listing individual joiner line items here, just the total sums from those group orders. It keeps things tidy that way. And then both of these tables right here will funnel into the CB net total table. And this table here, the CB net total table, that is what funnels into my yearly net total database that you saw on the main page. Similar to my other databases, I used relations and rollups again to connect all of this data together. So you'll see here that my relations items bought total, money received total. So that is how I connected this all, so I can get a singular sum here. And then that is what is included in my net yearly total table. So the final thing I'm going to touch on, and this will be brief, are taxes. You'll see here that I have a little taxes link, and that leads to a separate table. So here's where I will keep track of all of the items I'm importing. Everything I import into the United States, I have to pay taxes on. When you buy things from Korean shops, you're not paying taxes on those items. And because I'm a group order manager, I import thousands of dollars into the United States. And that's thousands of dollars the IRS probably thinks that I'm not paying taxes on. It doesn't matter if I'm not actually keeping all of those items. The IRS, to be honest, probably doesn't care. And I'm not trying to get in trouble with the IRS. I really don't want to be audited. So I declare everything I import and I pay taxes on everything, which is why I include a sales tax fee on my group orders, and I will show you an example of that. So for my recent Anities in Dreamland merch group order, I have a sales tax column here. So I make my joiners pay a sales tax, but that's because at the end of the year, I am paying everyone's sales tax. It's all on me. And just as a general PSA, you all should be declaring the items you buy from foreign shops on your tax return. I know the rules get a little muddled if you join group orders, and I know more group order managers are including a sales tax fee for their group orders, but if you're buying things directly from Korea and shipping it to the US, you need to pay taxes on those items. Even some US shops don't always include taxes, like Hello 82, so I also declare those purchases. So just be aware that's also why keeping track of your purchases is so important, because it'll help you in the long run. Alrighty, so that is everything. I think. I hope you found this informative or helpful. If you have any questions about anything or want clarification on something, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know. But yeah, that was it. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.